Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to Ustadh Math. Today we're doing histograms again. Lesson 3. If you have not watched lesson 2 and 1, I suggest you watch them before we go to this. Today we'll be working out the estimate mean using histograms. So we already covered working out the frequency density, how to draw a histogram, how to find a frequency using a histogram. So to proceed, last lesson all the students were given these questions, independent tasks to do. So hopefully, inshallah, you have done it. And to go forward, these are the answers. So everything I've highlighted in green, the frequency. So you have to use the graph, the histogram, to find out the frequencies. So all you have to do is do the difference in x times the difference in y, and so on and so forth. So 1.5, first one I can just show you one example, 1.5 times 10, that would give you 15. And we keep on going all the way down until we find all the frequencies. Question number 2 is a bit more tricky. So it says work out how many students took between 50 to 70 seconds to complete the puzzle. But the difference between 50 and 70 is over here. And we have, so the difference between 50 and 70 is 20. And we have the frequency density as 3.5, so we have to do 20 times 3.5, get answer 70. The next question, question number B, says calculate an estimate of the number of students who took under 30 seconds to complete the puzzle. So we have to just go draw a line where under 30 seconds. That's what we did in our example previous lesson. And under 30 seconds, there's a difference of between 10 and 30 is 20, and our height of the bar reaches up to 2 on the frequency density axis. We do 20 times 2, and we should get 40. We get 40 students. To move on, today we're going to be doing estimate mean using histogram. And estimate mean is not a difficult process. However, it may be lengthy. It might be, a lot of students forget this process because of how long this is, in other words. So first and foremost, what we have to do is when we're given something like a frequency table with different ranges from 0 to 1, 1 to 2. Let's talk about a journey in kilometers and talk about frequency. Maybe talking about how many people walked. So how long distances did people walk? So people who walked from 0 to 1 kilometers, there were 2 people. There's 4 people that walked between 1 to 2 kilometers, and so on and so forth. So to find the frequency using a histogram, first and foremost, we have to do the class width times the frequency density, which we just gone through in the previous lesson. Once you have found that, it's the same process with any frequency, even general graphs. If you have any frequency data related graphs, you can use the same method, which I'll be making another video on. So you need a column where you find the midpoint. Midpoint, talking about the midpoint of, let me just change my color. So let me black. So the midpoint between these two is 0.5. So we look over here, the midpoint between these two is 0.5, and the midpoint between 1 and 2 is 0.5, and that's going to be 2.5, 3.5, 5, and 7. So these are all the midpoints between these two different ranges of distances. Okay. Once you find the midpoint, you have to do this fourth column, which says midpoint times frequency. So you're going to multiply each midpoint with its frequency. So we're going to do 2 times 0.5, we get 1. 4 times 1.5 is 6. 3 times 2.5 is 7.5. 5 times 3.5 gives us 17.5, and all the way to here. So we found out the midpoint, times frequency, and now we have to add up all the totals for the frequency. So when we add up all the totals, we get 18. And when we add up all the totals for the midpoint frequencies, that will give us 54. And so to work out the estimated mean, we have to do the sum of midpoint frequencies divided by the sum of frequencies. So 54 divided by 18 gives us 3 kilometers. So all that means is, on an average, the average person, according to this data, walks 3 kilometers. So I can just write this, summarize this equation down, that estimated mean equals, okay, sum in mathematics is written this: sum of mid times frequencies, I'll just write freq, divided by sum of frequencies. And so this is the equation. This equation gives you the estimated mean. So you have to make 2 separate columns. Step number 1. Step number 2 is to work out the midpoints. So that was part of step number 1, making the midpoints. Step number 2 is doing the midpoint times the frequency, and then you work out the totals of midpoints times frequencies, the sum of them. Then you work out sum of frequencies, and then you do the total of midpoint frequency divided by the total of frequencies. Okay, so going on to an independent task for you to do now. So the way this lesson works is that I show you the ropes and you gotta have to do yourself. So I would like you to pause this video for 5 minutes, have a go at these questions, just what you have learned, and see where you get. Assuming that you have paused the video 5 minutes and done the question or had an attempt, we're going to go through the answers now. So it says work out the estimate mean for the histogram above. Okay, so first and foremost, we don't know the frequency, so we have to work out the frequencies. So frequencies for each bar is the difference in x times the height. So the first one would be 0.3 times 300, that will give us 90. The second one would be between 250 and between 300 to 500. It's 200 times, well, got up to 5.4, I think, 5.4. And that should give us 108. And we just keep on adding and multiplying all those bars, the y-axis and the x-axis, till we get all the frequencies. And this is the previous lesson, lesson number 2, to do with lesson number 2 and 1. Once we find the frequency, we have to find the midpoints. So the midpoints is the midpoint between these two values. So that's going to be 150, 400, 550, 700, and 1000. At the last column, we have to do midpoint times frequency. So the midpoints times the frequency. So we get 13,500, 43,200. The next one we get 38,500. The next one we get 700 times 76, 53,200. The last one 40,000. So now when we have the midpoint frequencies and we got the frequencies, which we already had in the first place, or we actually worked them out, we have to now take the total midpoint times frequency, the total of this column over here, and we have to divide it by the total of the frequency, so the total of all these frequencies, which gives us the estimate mean. So the numbers we're going to put into here, so I just worked out real quick, the total of the midpoint times frequencies is 188,400. And the total of the frequencies is 384. And when you divide those two, you should get the answer as 490.63. That's the estimated mean, and that's in terms of pound.